I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to sit in your lap.
It is under personnel, under Theodore Schmidt's hourly rate. We have in the agenda $15.39, it's actually $15.38. So that is the only change to the agenda that I'm aware of.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion carried.
Speak in the speaker so we can hear you. Yeah, they're out.
On the agenda?
Yep.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. All right, moving to the minutes from the July 7th meeting.
Second.
Did you vote on that as well?
Yes.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Abstain.
Wes was absent. The special meeting on July 10th.
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the bills in between, $156,672.09.
Make a motion and we approve. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Current claims, $104,848.78. Any discussion?
Has anything been added to that since I looked at the bill section?
No, sir.
Okay. Make a motion, we accept the current claims.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Communications from the public. We have the 211 helpline first. There you are.
Where do you want to go?
I know, we're gonna rearrange going forward. I haven't had a chance to talk to Chris yet, but we're gonna try to make that a little easier.
I'm Heidi Dakota with Helpline Center, and I appreciate the chance to come down and talk to
You
you.
want a mic?
Okay.
Would you use a mic since we videotape? I think it would, you have such a soft, gentle voice.
My children will not agree with you.
I didn't ask them.
Use my mom voice, okay?
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'm Heidi Dakota with Helpline Center, and I'm glad to have a chance to come down and talk to you tonight a little bit. We really appreciate the support that Hot Springs has given us in the past, and I know that some of this is going to be sort of repeat for some of you, but I know there's also some of you that are new to the council, so hopefully I can give you a little idea of what we do and answer any questions that you might have. So Helpline Center is a United Way agency. We operate the 211 information line, which is a free 24-hour service. We can answer questions and give referrals to social service agencies, nonprofit groups, and government programs. About 90% of the country has access to a 211 service, and in South Dakota, about half of the residents have access. And West River, that includes the 6 Black Hills counties, so Fall River, Custer, Meade, Lawrence, Butte, and Pennington. Every person who calls 211 gets a live person on the phone, no matter what time of day or night. They're asked to provide their zip code, their age, and their gender, and then at the end of the year, we can use that zip code information to pull out and compile our community trends report, which is basically a summary of all the calls we received in 2013 from the Black Hills. So I'm just going to kind of run through a little of that with you. It gives a pretty good idea of what we do. If you look at the center panel, apologize, I didn't bring a lot bigger stack. I didn't expect there to be so many people. At the top in the center there, you can see our calls were up last year. We had 9,706 calls from the Black Hills. And the main reason for that, it was up from about 8,500 the previous year, was because of Winter Storm Atlas. We had almost 2,000 storm-related calls after the blizzard. And if you look farther there to the right, it breaks it down a little more by area. And the Southern Hills calls were down last year, but I think 2012 you guys had a pretty good fire down in this area, which probably accounted for some of that spike. Our callers last year ranged in age from 10 to 97. You know, we had 10-year-olds who called looking for food for their families, kind of a little bit of everything. Most of the calls we get are information calls, more than half of them. Those are calls from people who know what they need, they just need an answer. Maybe they're looking for summer hours for the Boys and Girls Club here in Hot Springs or something like that. Referral calls come from people who know they need some help, but they don't know where to go. Maybe someone's lost their job recently and they're trying to figure out, you know, where they can find some food for their family to get them through the month or something like that. Those would be referral calls. Listening and support actually comes into play. That says it accounts for 3% of our calls, but comes into play in a lot of calls, I think. Most of our call specialists have backgrounds in counseling or social work, and they're really good at just providing encouragement and support on the phone. And every call that comes in is categorized, and the basic needs, calls for basic needs, things like housing and food and transportation, that's pretty much always makes up the bulk of the calls that we get. Those numbers were up last year, but because of the blizzard, that category was actually second. If you look on the left side of this, the left panel there, the organizational, community, and international services, that included questions about disaster response and donations and things. So that was the big chunk of our calls last year. Another thing that this report lets us do is identify what we call unmet needs in a community, where there's maybe not a program available to help people, or the person has exhausted the resources, or they don't qualify for whatever programs are available. Housing was the top of that list this past year. We get a lot of calls from people looking for help with rent deposits and moving expenses, those types of things, and there are not a lot of programs to help with those. Transportation was second in terms of unmet needs. We get a lot of calls for people looking for bus tickets and car repair money and those types of things. And one thing that I think is kind of interesting is our call center has been getting more calls from people who are on their way to North Dakota to try to find work up there. They've maybe gotten this far and run out of money, and they're looking for gas money to get them the rest of the way. And again, not a lot of resources to help with that. Over on the right, you can see our call center also answers the suicide crisis line for the state of South Dakota. Last year we had 146 suicide-related calls from the Black Hills, which was, I think the previous year was 148, so it was pretty steady. And those calls are broken down into levels. Level 1 calls are people who are having thoughts of suicide. Level 2 calls are people having thoughts of suicide and they have a plan of how they would carry that out. And the level 3 calls are from people who have thoughts and a plan. And they've maybe either put the plan into action or they're ready to do that. They've already taken some pills or they have a handgun with them or something like that. And in those situations, our call specialists can have them on the phone and be contacting 911 at the same time to get law enforcement or some help there to them if needed. We also get a lot of calls from people who are concerned about other people, and we can help with information and suggestions, resources for them too. Another thing I kind of forgot to mention with the call numbers, the call numbers from Southern Hills were actually down last year, 323 down from 720. But that is just the call, people who call 211. All of the information about the resources in the state is also available through our website. You can go to our website, which is helplinecenter.org, and search by community for whatever it is you're looking for. You can put in Hot Springs or Fall River and elderly meals or whatever it is, and it will give you the information for your community. And so some people may be just going online to look for answers to it. The back page of that is kind of just a summary of our storm calls. Initially we had a lot of calls from people looking for emergency shelter or information on road closures and things. And as the weekend kind of went on through the storm, we started hearing more from people with downed trees and branches, lots of elderly and disabled people who knew they weren't going to be able to take care of the tree on the neighbor's fence or whatever by themselves. And as the storm kind of let up, we started hearing more from ranchers with fences down and cattle, missing. And also we started getting calls from people who want to volunteer to help or to donate to the relief fund. And typically the calls that we get at 211 are confidential. We don't keep names and numbers and things, but in that situation we did. And then we were able to provide a list of the storm-related calls to our emergency management office the next day. And they could pass them on to the committee that was handling that so they could be hooked up with volunteers that could go help, all the people that had called, and they did a pretty amazing job. So I know you guys have a lot on your agenda, and I don't want to take too much of your time, but that kind of sums up, I guess, a lot of what we do. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Do you liaison with the Red Cross?
They're in our database, yeah, and in that situation after the storm.
Or a fire?
Well, and one thing we can do in terms of disaster is we try to work with emergency management offices a lot so that they can put 211 on press releases that go out and have the public be calling us instead of them, or 911 looking for information.
Gotcha, thank you.
That can be hopefully a big time saver for agencies when
So
there's a
somebody
disaster.
could volunteer for the Red Cross in a district capacity, in this area?
Actually, as far as the volunteer thing, we haven't done a lot with volunteer stuff, although we did related to the storm. But we just, last week, found out we're going to get a grant from the Kurovich Foundation to do a Volunteer Connections project, it's called. And we're going to be starting, somewhat small and trying to expand it, but it will be a situation where people can go on and say, I want to help with, disaster relief is a little different because you don't know when it's going to happen, but people will be able to go onto the website and say, I want to volunteer to help with animals, but I can only help on Monday night or Friday morning, and it will show them what is available, which will be helpful for agencies too when we get that going.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, during an emergency like the storm of 2013, how easy was it for you guys to give information out? When the snow fell so quickly and so much of it, how easy, did you learn a lot from that, or was that?
Yeah, I think everybody learned.
Give people information.
Yeah. And actually, I think it was a big kind of awareness thing for us because 211 has only been in the Black Hills, for less than 10 years, and it's been active in Sioux Falls since the 70s, for example. And I think when they have a disaster down there, people know immediately to start feeding them the information to work with them, and that was kind of a little bit of a learning curve, here. But pretty early on, we had a lot of the calls and information going through 211 in terms of press releases and all of that. They were kind of trying to funnel everything through there. So initially, it was a lot of phone calls to make sure we had the updated, the latest information.
I'm impressed 10-year-olds knew.
I know, isn't that something? Yeah.
How do people know about 211?
That seems to be an ongoing, challenge, I guess. I've been in this job for about 15 months, and I can't believe how many times when I tell somebody where I work, I have to tell them what it is then, So, we're trying to do marketing through different groups and, everything from hanging up posters and distributing cards in places where they might be useful, through the different agencies that we work with. For example, if somebody goes to Catholic Social Services for some reason, they'll find our cards there or whatever, or the food pantry. But, then we've also, it's just kind of different ways of trying to find stuff to get our word out all the time, I think. I don't know if that really answered your question.
It does.
Okay.
I just have a comment. When I moved here in 2012, we came across on State Route 20 in Nebraska, and they had road signs
Oh,
saying call 211, but Ohio doesn't have that, so I didn't even know what it was.
yeah.
That's just what I would.
And we've done some billboards more in the rapid area and stuff, but
Highway signs.
highway signs.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And They want billboards.
Yeah, that might be something for us to look into.
Heidi, it's my understanding that we have contributed to this program before. We're
You have.
going into budget in a couple weeks.
Mhm.
Are we looking for anything different than what we've done historically, or are we on track?
No, just, where it's been has been great, and we just would like to continue that if possible.
Okay.
So,
We will definitely consider it in budget time. Great, a couple more weeks.
okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Time?
All right, let's get the call again.
I think every council person has got a letter from the Arts and Crafts Festival, but again, we would like to thank support from the city that helped us make the park look real sharp. Also, some of our vendors that have been there for years that keep coming back, definitely as they look down the park, they make comments to the committee that they really appreciate the park improvements. So definitely they spotted the new drinking fountain. Already delivered the check to Harley concerning park improvements. Number one, from an anonymous donor that contributed $1,000, I think, toward the new drinking fountain, and also Main Street Arts and Crafts Festival budgeted monies. They included $500 with that check also. Also, our committee made a decision and got the blessing from Harley to upgrade some of the sound wires that are in the park that are connecting the antique sound horns that are in the park there. Hopefully, with the help of Black Hills Power and Light here shortly, we'll get that installed. Hopefully, just before the carnival, so the bucket trucks won't be interfering with the carnival stuff. Plus, hopefully, we'll have it ready for when the wall comes. Also, last thing, asking for support from the council, at least to our committee, and what we'll do is we'll go through the different council committees concerning restrooms, fountain responsibilities, and also some dog problems with our festival. But thanks again.
Thank you. And if the anonymous person is here, thank you as well. And I understand there's a couple more communications from the public. Kim?
Good evening. The city is currently working with the Parks Department for the overview, and we've done public forums and stuff like that to improve our city parks. Along with them and myself, I've been working on doing events, raising funds to put a splash pad up at Butler Park. And an email was sent to me today, and I received in that email some information regarding a grant that is available through the South Dakota State Parks Department. They are willing to match up to 50% of funds raised, which I'm asking with you guys just going into budget. The maximum amount is $50,000. So Wes, I would like to present this to you to take a look at. Deadline to apply for this is September 5th. They only offer these every other year. And I'd like that designated specifically if we can work towards that with Matt and getting that splash pad. Because it's just over $100,000. What do I got in the account? Just under, what did?
Right at 4.
Right at 4,000, just since last year, raised towards that $100,000. There's no way I can do it all by myself. Just with these events, it take me years to get that splash pad installed. There is a need, and I think with the report that we're all going to see coming up, I think you'll agree. So I'd like it to go into your budget coming up.
How much is your splash pad?
It's just over $100,000.
Oh, it is.
And I guess you guys have, the city in the past has received grants from them before?
Yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with this, and I'd like to give that to you, Wes, later. There was one other thing on, y'all know about the mud run being canceled. We will be planning on setting up and running next year. Just a heads up. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Kim, and thanks for all the work you've done. I know it only sounds like $4,000, but she's worked really hard for that. Appreciate it. And I heard, is he here? Or she, or?
Quality, that's you.
Now or never.
I'm in there.
Okay.
I'm in quality weed control, Custer. I met with, I talked and connected with Lux, Mr. Lux, Carly, sorry. Not to mess called all kinds of business in nature. You know the guy next to you though. This is Frank here. Anyhow, about weed control in the city here of Hot Springs, I think given a chance, our outfit can probably save this town a lot of money when it comes to spraying those parks, whatever you have to spray around here. I think we can do some considerable saving of money in this town. So I guess I'm here to ask you if at some time we can do some sort of contract for like next year. I know this year is already kind of gone into season and gone, but just to kind of think about that for the future for next year, and we may come to another city meeting and just kind of maybe give a little bit more on what we can probably do as far as saving this town a bunch of money.
Well, like we told Heidi, we're going into budget in a couple weeks. Is this something that we would
We have been
handle?
budgeting for weed control.
But I mean, if he provided, not follow process here, but I mean, I can't just go, yeah, you can save us money. I mean, I kind of like to see
No, I
numbers.
understand that. You'd have to see something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that.
Do you do it in other towns?
Yeah, I do. For the last 3 years, I've been doing all the spraying for Custer.
I'm not sure, Mayor, how you're going to handle your committees, but that could be one of your special committees assigned to a couple people to sit down and see what he has to offer, and we compare to what we've been doing and decide what we want to get into the budget for next year.
Well, typically, we just pick a dollar amount, and run out of money, we're out of spraying business.
Yeah. But I think by giving, whether it's 5 or 2 or 3 or 4 commercial applicators the opportunity to bid on something, get it competitive. Instead of taking one person or 2 people and saying, we're going to spend $8,000, $10,000 this year, and all of a sudden, amount of money now we can't do no more. I guess what I'm getting at here is I think with a competitive bid, I think you can get a lot more for your buck. Good we can.
Okay. And like Carly said, we'll look at this, and he's already kind of talked ahead a little bit that I will probably have a special committee for this.
Okay.
So, all right,
Good.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other communications from the public? I can't really see over there, so someone has their hand up. We good? All right, except for the one change that I discussed at the beginning, any issues with personnel? Just information there, there you go. Take that as a no. We'll go into ordinances with the first reading of 1145, Chapter 18-A, Grass and Weeds. It's weed night here. Fred, this is your baby. You want to give us a overview?
Well, the old safety committee went over this before the mayor even, so, and I think she's looked at it. We think as bad as the town's starting to look, including the city land, we need to change some of our ordinances. And we're changing it from 12 inches to 8 inches, the weed height. And I don't think it's really going to be hard to cut weeds on the hillside. I know they can't do that, but on flat ground and stuff, the town's really looking shabby, if you ask me. And And I just think we need, more grooming, I guess. And everybody needs to do their part, including the city. So I make a motion for first reading to accept this new ordinance.
I'll second
The reason for a lot of this is the old ordinance, you didn't have to mow your entire property. All you had to mow was the outer edges. It made no sense. I mean, so when you're trying to make the town look better, if you get someone that just mows the outer edge, I mean, it really does no good. I mean, it was kind of another worthless ordinance. I mean,
Does this ordinance clarify what should be mowed and what shouldn't? I mean, is it specific?
well, pretty much common sense tells you if it's flat ground, it needs mowed. I mean,
It does have an exception on it too, so that
I mean, I can see some,
there's places where you
what does that mean for people that have cars or stuff in the yard and they aren't trimming them?
Well, I'm kind of hoping they're trimming around their cars and stuff.
That's what I'm saying, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know, you're saying you're hoping, so it's kind of subjective when you look at somebody's yard, what needs to be mowed and what doesn't, so how do you enforce it?
Well, you'd have to read it. It states in there pretty much everything we're supposed to do.
And we actually didn't talk about this before, but I do have a concern about how we enforce it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, I'm just saying it's gonna be really
To
hard.
enforce all of our ordinances.
Wait, in Rapid City, I know they have the same height, 8 inches, and they do go around and put them on their doors.
When I was in Pier last week, they just happened to be speaking of the same issue in Pier at the same time, and their height actually is 12 inches there. And I actually took pictures for you. We haven't had time to look at them, but they only do mow around the perimeter. And I'm just, you know, and I have the state signs in the background the whole bit. So I'm just letting you know that Pier does do it differently
No,
than
but
we
even
do.
if, excuse me, I'm sorry.
What is it?
Even if we do leave it at 12 inches, people aren't mowing. I mean, the center's getting there's property over there that's over my head. That's
Well, I know,
more than
that's
12
why
inches.
I'm saying we can't enforce
Yeah.
12. You know, I just see that we're gonna have a problem enforcing less than
we're
12.
enforcing now, because I got people calling me that are wanting me to take my tractor, and it takes a tractor to mow some of these properties. Not a lawnmower, I'm talking a tractor.
Oh, I.
So, I mean, we gotta do something. I mean, this is getting out of
But do we
hand.
want to spend a lot of money trying, you know, I mean, we have to discuss this at budget time. Do we want to put money on the table for enforcing this? Because I think it's going to be very difficult. And Joyce had her hand up, and then you, sir.
I'd just like to address a little bit, you know, I have some lots there, and I have a hillside. I know, my mom and the neighbors and myself, we spent a lot of time planting some wild grasses in them, planting a bunch of flowers in them, and, you know, I think they look nice. I mean, I go in and 10, 12 feet, whatever, all around it. This year was, I think, exceptional amount of rain, that, you know, some of the grasses are here, but I've never received any complaints that people don't like them. One of the lots is kind of on a hill like this, and then there's a house down here, and I'm sure that it's doing some erosion control with all the grass and everything, that the poor gentleman with the land down here is going to worry if everything comes down at a hillside. I have no idea how I would take care of a hillside, and some of the lots go like this. I mean, I understand that, you know, if you got weeds and thistles and stuff like that growing, that's something we should probably address, but if you're just not, you know, grassy lot, not harming anything, I have a question of whether or not that's a good expense of our resources to have people worried about that. I also, I mean, you know, I think too, when we look at it, this year was exceptional because of the rain. I mean, everything grew. Everything we didn't want to grow. But, you know, if you take the good weed control, get rid of the thistles, getting rid of the creep and jenny, getting rid of everything else is in the land. You know, that's part of the ambience of a small town, that everything isn't this high. You drive around and look at the whole town. My thoughts.
And there is people that complain about your lot. Every big softball player that hits the ball over there complaining about that lot.
And we've had private citizens complain about it, so I mean, there's clover all over Hot Springs, and clover will blow it and it'll just keep growing. I mean, if you ever tried to mow clover with a lawnmower, it's pretty tough.
I was just gonna say, we've lived in a few states in our life, and we lived out in Oregon, and little rural community, and we had a lot of vacant lots with cars and refrigerator, you know, all kinds of, and then just vacant property that the owners didn't take care of. They'd put door hanger on your door twice, and then the county would mow it, and they'd put the assessment against your property, so you had to, I mean, you had initial layout of money, but the money was, it's amazing how many people mowed when they got the second notice, and then you didn't have to pay for this.
It's a horrible, horrible fire hazard.
Yeah,
Just-
another,
I was on a volunteer fire department. The worst, one of the worst things that we hated was fields where nobody mowed anything down. So that's something to think of.
yeah, a few more weeks, it's gonna be all dry, and then you got a lot of problems.
But as far as that ordinance is like, there's car ordinances in town and stuff, we just have to start going by our ordinances, and we haven't done that in the past. Whether we change this to 8 or leave it at 12, we need to start taking care of some lots in town, including city lots, because I drove around and looked at them.
Well, that's why I'm concerned about the enforcement.
Well, we just need to,
We just need to mow
Yeah,
our own
no.
stuff.
So let me, I'm still new at this, so this is the first reading.
Yep.
I've got a motion and a second, and my understanding is that it can take us to a second reading.
That's right.
We're only agreeing to a second reading,
That's right.
right? All in favor of that?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next ordinance reading is 1146, amending Chapter 2, Administration, Planning, and Zoning members. That's in your package. Basically, this is the first reading. Well, as you can read, no less than 5, no more than 8, and then we can have a couple minority from the county. Just to summarize it for. Go ahead.
I have an issue with that.
Okay.
And I know we've talked in the past, to property owners, living outside of town, but I guess I'd like to see something in there that if there's someone who lives in town, they should be on there first. From Fall River County at the very least. Because the way this thing is, it doesn't specify county specific. We don't want people from everywhere being on our, I mean, you just don't do that. And I understand this wasn't your doings, this was the previous mayor. He changed this. And that's why I want you, I guess, maybe to give a little more thought, because there's been people want on this, and they haven't been put on there.
So you're not opposed to someone from the county? I'm just trying
As
to.
long as they own property in town.
Okay.
Well, it does say that members of the planning commission shall be resident electors of the city of Hot Springs, qualified by knowledge or experience to act in matters pertaining to the development and administration, comprehensive plan of development for the city. So it's there that should be people in Hot Springs.
It says majority of.
Majority. Yeah, that's the new word.
And I'm not too ignorant to see there's people with knowledge that are living outside of town that are currently on here. But I have a problem with it.
Well, I would have a problem if they're on the planning commission and they're from Custer County.
No, I
Or from
think we
Shannon.
should put Fall River County in
Should
there.
be
I think
Fall
I'm
River
fine with
County.
that. Custer's pretty close, but I'm okay with,
I
talking
believe
about
the
that.
person paying taxes is the person should get to have a say.
Well, because property owners could live in Custer County or Missouri. So,
But I mean, the taxes they pay here particularly.
I would make a motion that we accept the first reading of this ordinance.
I'll second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So we got that down there?
Got it.
Okay. All right. I think you're up, Dwight. Old business, the water fill station, you have drawings. Apologize publicly for moving this out a couple weeks on you, Dwight. I had not seen the drawings prior to the meeting last time.
No apology needed, Mayor. The committee has decided to put the new water fill station in its current location. Tear down the old garages there, put a double loadout station on the same corner where the garage is. I'll make the motion. Put the fill station in that lot.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Discussion?
Do we talk about it?
We can talk about it.
You didn't try, you didn't pay the mayor off.
Gave you 2 extra weeks.
Right.
Let's talk.
Okay, have we come to an agreement on what this is supposed to cost?
We have
I've
money.
asked Dwight. Fill station makes what, 60,000?
No.
20?
25.
It's running right at 30 on an average.
30?
Yeah. And it comes out of the water fund is where the revenue goes into, so the revenue for constructing this would come out of the water fund.
So what's something like this going to cost to build?
Noticed Tracy coming in. Did you have any estimates? Tracy did these drawings like 6 or 7 years ago, and we kind of brought it back
And
in.
it kind of died for lack of a second or lack of a first for a while. You know, we would need to revisit those costs and decide if we want to do the little park thing. I mean, you're gonna have those portions of lots there, you gotta do something with it. You know, we can just keep them mowed, or we can put a tree or two, and, you know, that area up there is rather underserved for any type of a little place where, you know, just a mom with kids and a stroller can sit down or whatever. The most expensive part, obviously, will be the mechanism, you know, the double fill mechanism. And we've talked in the past about whether we want to stay with a strictly coin-operated system like we currently have, or if we want to, you know, have a credit card capability. You start talking credit card capability, now you've got to have an internet connection or whatever, and now the cost is going to be a lot higher. I think staying with the coin would be the way to go, really. It works. Why change? Why change that? So that keeps it fairly simple. I would have to get a current price on the coin-operated valves. Do you have a feeling on that, Tim, when we last replaced some of the stuff up here, what we paid for it, by any chance?
I guess it was, I have no idea. I know we bought 2 when we replaced the coin operator stuff before. I don't think it was really all that much.
It's not a ridiculous amount.
It was just a panel.
We've got the demolition of the building and, you know, a little bit of concrete work to do there, get those drain fields put in. You know, you're probably gonna have 20 or 30,000 when it's all said and done, but if 1 year's revenue pretty much gets you covered on that, then we're pretty well set.
Are we gonna retain the alley that is behind, which would be,
The alley's been vacated behind that portion of the lot.
That whole area has been replatted into 4 lots. There used to be 7 lots with an alley through there that Carl's referring to. And that's all been replatted into 4 lots with the intent of tearing the building down, removing the water fill station, and putting those up for sale for residents. But if we use one of them for this purpose, that'll still leave the other 3 for uses.
Isn't the alley still platted on the west side, not the east side?
We have to check into that.
Because I think they just did it right behind that the old water shot, and it's like a quarter of the way down. I think the alley's still in the rest of it.
Yeah, 'cause we still got a fence.
Yeah, we still have the fence we need to take down the last 2 years.
They were both vacated.
I don't think so. I could be
One of
wrong.
them's half vacated and the
Yeah.
other one is fully vacated, so there's a half of.
But we are proposing a double fill station, right?
Yeah, right. We can't drain that right into the sewer. We have to have a leach field.
We have outfits that come in there that fill, that don't use stuff that we want to go through our sewer system in case it should happen to get cross-contaminated. I mean, we try to keep them out of there, but once in a while, one gets in there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
What are they,
We have weed sprayers that come in, and some of them fill up. We've got directional bore companies that come in, and they put bentonite and all sorts of good stuff in their tanks. And we really don't want to start running all that through our sewer system.
I don't know, I hate putting that up in that residential area. Have we had any opposition?
Not yet.
Been there forever.
Well, I know it has, but we've also talked about moving forever too.
Nobody can come
I
up.
haven't had anyone come in, just to answer your question, concerned about it staying there. I've had people come in concerned about it moving to, like, on University. So,
The bypass.
bypass, I'm sorry, the bypass, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Not as funny as University, yeah.
This is a water hauler. That area is a good spot, in my opinion, because there's many vehicles that line up there.
But you don't live there.
Well, wherever they put it, they need to have it where
No, I know what
more
you're
than one
saying.
vehicle could get in there, because I've seen 8 vehicles lined up. The double fill will help a lot.
And there is the church across the street, so I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's never really been a problem there. It's just, we're trying to sell that other property. I just question if we're gonna have any buyers, but.
Well, I can sing Amazing Grace when I'm getting water too.
But just the fact that you're, wanting to put in HVA kind of implies that you ought to have it further from residents as well. I mean, you got stuff going in on leach field that you really don't know what it is.
Well,
I wouldn't want to be living there.
I question that leach field too, if we can.
the
dump
thing
it in
is,
sewer.
I don't know how long that loading dock has been there. Do you know where it empties out right now? Right out in the middle of that lot.
Has for years.
Crash Herd Road's good, so wherever they've been dumping on the street, hasn't been too bad.
Kids over there all favorite.
Got more toes than one side.
Yeah.
All right, I don't know where we're at here.
You've got a motion on the floor to approve the water fill station at the corner of
Did I get a second?
Canton and
I think I was cut off.
Basically, what we're doing right now is just approving the location.
Right, we're just approving the location, do I?
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There you go.
Motion carried.
Motion carried. All
All you
right.
gotta do is get money to build it.
Yep. Okay, my close came a couple weeks ago to talk about the Bills youth football cheerleading. We had a little bit of a discussion. We asked to bring it back into this meeting. Do you have any further thoughts? Communication? Helpful
The
data?
paperwork I handed out, I heard some rumblings of it. We haven't purchased those yet. That's a cost estimate for the Corn Express for football jerseys.
That's a what?
A cost estimate. We haven't purchased any of those.
So,
And the front sheet is our latest bank account, which doesn't reflect the $665 check we just wrote to football.
the $9,895 check that was written,
That was player fees.
player fees, was that collected?
That was
Paid for.
the 75 that each player paid, and then the money we raised, bridged the gap between that 200 and The third one hasn't been cashed yet. That was for, like I said, the 665. So we had some late additions signed up. I don't know if I mentioned the last time we opened it up to 6th grade boys, because we had 12 5th grade boys and we didn't have enough to field the team. So talking to the head football coach, Ben Kramer, we didn't want to let any kids down. So we opened it to 6th grade, and now we're at 17 for the B1 team. So all 3 teams are ready to play. In fact, next Monday we do weigh-ins. The reason we do weigh-ins is so you can't put your biggest kid at running back and have him run over everybody. So every kid on our team is going to get weighed. Starting the 4th of August, that Monday, practice starts. Cheerleaders, you'll see us out on the practice field, cheerleaders and football players.
This didn't show where you got your money deposited.
Correct. I mean, did you want each?
Well, no, I mean, if you just could show us where the $9,000 came from, or how much you paid.
Okay, that was from probably 30 different businesses.
And one of them is the fire department.
Correct.
$2,500.
The fire department and the Dakota Mud Run each donated a very generous amount.
And the Dakota Mud Run?
Correct.
And how much did they?
$1,500.
What is the startup cost for other cities?
A lot less than ours. The reason ours is more expensive is because I don't know too many families in town that can afford. I myself have 2 boys that want to play. I can't provide $420 to go play. So we pounded the pavement and we worked our butts off to raise the money. Because if we left that 210, I guarantee we'd have a quarter of the kids participating right now. So that took away a lot of our fundraising money, but we got the kids in, and that's the biggest hurdle. Because without the helping with the player fees, there would be no hot springs building.
And I got my questions from the coach and the principal. One question they had was, does the city give money like this to soccer and to gymnastics and the other sports that aren't part of the schools? Are there any other sports here that aren't part of the school system? Is this the only one?
Soccer is sanctioned by the school, but they don't fund it, but I don't know now this year they're going to be.
So they don't come to us for money?
Since I've been here, I haven't.
Soccer. Is gymnastics part of the school system?
Yes, it is.
They are, so they're funded by the school?
One other item we have is, as part of the youth football, we have to do community service. Each player is required to do a certain amount of community service. We work for you guys for a day. Sounds like there's some lots of people.
There you go.
We have just about 80 kids. You figure one carrying a kid, we can get a lot of work done. Another thing is the economic impact. We're going to have our 80-some kids up there. They're all going to be hungry after the games. The team that comes in, if we have a home game like the Rapid City team, you're looking at probably 160 kids. And we have as small a teams as we can have participate. And these other teams have 25, 26 football players per team.
And that's on a Saturday day.
So we do see benefit to the economy from this organization as well?
Did you get the shoulder pads and everything on the helmets and everything already?
That's all provided from, they provide the helmets.
So you just gotta buy the jerseys?
Jerseys and the pants. And the pants could be used year to year. With the jerseys, each season the kids get to keep their jersey at the end of the year.
What's the jersey cost?
The combo set we're looking at right now is 75, I believe, on there.
What does that mean, combo?
That's actually the pants, and that's the sewn-in pads. So the kids, because there's some kids that have parents that may never have played football, and we don't want a thigh pad up on their hip or a knee pad somewhere it should be. So these pads are actually sewn in, so they just wash the whole thing.
And they're reusable.
Reusable. Each year we'll reuse them, so that'll cut a large amount of ours. And the reason we want to do the combo set is so year to year, we have the colors that match. We don't want to, each company is different on what they call a blue. So if the match we set this year, we can go with that company. Next year, all we need is jerseys.
Wouldn't you, if you reuse the jerseys, instead of giving them to the kids, you could use them and then pass them down to other kids?
That's part of the league, is the kids who can show off that they played football. They have their name across the back, kind of an added benefit, which the player fee used to be more because the league paid for the jerseys. Well, they lowered the fee, which is still very high. So.
And you have to buy the jersey through them, I suppose.
What's that?
You have to buy the jersey through them,
No,
I suppose.
we can do it.
And you said those were $75 for the jersey?
For the set.
Oh, set. I was thinking you can buy an adult jersey for $35.
Yeah, and then we have to get the so.
And that
The
includes.
ones out of China are illegal, so don't be buying them.
Good idea.
So that includes the embroidery on them too? $75?
And Josh is the one has dealt mostly with the uniforms. I kind of delegated that to him to help out a little bit. He's the one that's been in contact with me for the most part.
So you mentioned just a minute ago that we had 80 members in your group,
Yep.
and your quantity is only 60 on here.
That's football and cheerleading is the 80 I speak of. The 80 that I speak of is football and cheerleading.
Football.
The cheerleading quote, I didn't get a chance to copy that off, and I have some back of it tonight.
The cheerleading uniform, it's $2,200 for 25 girls is the uniforms that we have to take out for them. And the cheer and the football uniforms are not the cheapest things that we could go with. They're some decent looking uniforms that does include embroidery with the names and everything on them. But they're not top of the line, they're not Riddell pro uniforms or anything like that. They're about the least expensive ones that are decent quality uniforms that are going to last year to year too.
And anybody who's ever played football knows if you go buy something cheap, it's going to get tore up. Because I'm guaranteeing these kids are going to wear their pants at home and play in the backyard with their brothers and sisters before games. So you need something that's going to be kid resistant. I have 4 of them. I know it's tough.
You already have the uniform?
No.
Well, what was sold to, built to, and shipped to here? And has a uniform express?
That's just the quota.
That's
Yeah,
all.
I mean, they have it all ready to go, so all we have to do is press the go button when funds are available. But
Can you give us the date again? Last time you told us the date.
For the first game?
Yeah.
September 6th, I believe, is the first. It's the first Saturday in September. We start practice next week.
Next week, that's what I thought.
Or 2 weeks from now, just give them out just work. So weigh in next week.
Do you have programs that you hand out for the games?
We probably will for our home teams, but the away team, it'd be hard getting their roster. Another, I don't know if I mentioned it last time, is there's no admin fee to get to the game. There's no fee to come watch. So
I was gonna say, have you hit up the businesses in town like everybody else does and have a program where these are our sponsors?
we're making shirts. I mean, the businesses I've talked to have all seen my breakdown of, the dollar amount gets you on this shirt, or you get a banner, or what the breakdown is.
You can advertise on the jerseys themselves?
No, not on the jerseys.
Not on
The
the
3
jerseys.
sponsors have already been set up. So there's 3 businesses in town that have their names on the front of the jerseys.
What you guys think about that plan if you don't get the funds for the jerseys and stuff? What are the kids going to be utilizing?
We'll be buying the $10 practice jerseys and using the practice pants that they provide us. That, I don't know if you've seen our commercial on TV, those practice pants on those boys were going down to their ankles, and we had to tuck the socks up under the pants to make them get decent for that commercial.
Do you ask the county for any money?
No,
Just the city?
just the city.
Why not the county?
So we have 3 kids from the county.
The rest are residents of Hot Springs.
Correct.
And the games will be in Hot Springs.
Usually Hot Springs.
Saturday days.
I thought you said you had kids from Edgemont and Oryx and
We've had
everything
a
else.
few
that
like that.
was-
We had, like I said, one from Edgemont, one from Oryx.
So what are you asking for?
The original amount I said was the 9,000 would get us all of our practice equipment, we'd buy coach polos and our jerseys. And that would be pretty bare bones for us. The 63 was the 6,300 was the jersey flow.
You can see my question. We're not doing it for others, but we're
Yeah.
not when we find somebody's bids.
I don't know of any other non-sanctioned school sport that can get 80 kids together though.
Have those other organizations come to you and ask?
No, but they will be.
I was gonna say baseball, I'm not sure how baseball works.
Legion sponsors.
Legion sponsors.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't quite agree.
Although we do supply the building for the gymnastics,
So
and we
we're
have
supposed
soccer
to
fields
get,
all
but
over
we're supposed to
town.
get like compensation for something and
So they say.
somebody's saying.
Have you hit all the businesses in town?
I would say probably 75% of them.
How about the Boys and Girls Club too? Would that be something they might want to help sponsor?
They ain't got no money.
Well, they do fundraisers though all the time for a lot of other stuff.
If I remember correctly, last year, we gave $6,000 to the Boys and Girls Club,
Say, yeah, that's
and they
probably
still
what-
didn't have enough money.
Like say we force on the county, like Dwight says, we tell them we'll match.
Seems like everybody comes begging us for money all the time. They never go to the county one thing.
I understand, well, I mean, the two kids.
It's gonna benefit them too, the whole county. I mean, it's economic growth spread around.
Great, but it's different.
All right, guys, he has come here 3 times that I'm aware of, so let's
Do we have the money?
see what we can move
About
forward here.
what's our, in our account,
Yeah.
our grab bag.
Well, one of the items I recommended was the balance that's in the summer rec program that isn't spent. They got about 2 weeks left of the summer rec program. The last 2 years, we had between $2,500 and $3,000 left there, so there would be the $3,000 there. That would be an easy sell in my book. If you want to go any higher than that, there's contingency if you wish to tap into that or any other programs that, or other areas that we have budgeted. Parks or anywhere else in the city that you want me to look at to see if there's anything extra.
Well, contingency is only supposed to be used for emergency. This really doesn't constitute an emergency.
What can we,
Thank to them.
We've used it for a lot of other things.
If you want to compete with East River, might be an emergency.
Well, I don't like bending the rules. I mean, I could see the rest of that summer rec program money. I guess I could see that, but
Maybe that's something you guys want to look at is incorporating into the summer rec program for this budget year coming up. So a
15?
little more justified that way for the city to spend that much of that kind of money on
Would it help you if you did have the 3,000 now?
Yeah, in each amount of road.
That's something that would probably be now, I would think.
are you making a motion?
I'll make a motion, to give them, I'll second it, what we can from the summer rec program right now.
Which is 3,000?
3,000.
He said 2,500 to 3,000, so whatever's left over.
Right.
Right.
Well, he probably needs to know pretty soon, right?
It's going to be 3 weeks before we know what's left over in the summer rec. We can get a close estimate. Close estimate.
We make it just whatever's left over.
Yeah, that's what I said.
They're going to need the money before
That's,
3 weeks.
yeah, 3 weeks is a little,
We're-
he's already waited 2 more weeks for us, just to point out where we were actually going to go with it.
I guess,
think we're looking at this all wrong. We've got, what, 60 football players and how many cheerleaders? 25, so we've got 85 kids here that we're going to impact on. We're looking at $9,000. I think that $9,895 is a pretty small amount when you're talking about affecting that many kids, plus all the parents, and it's not going to be something that is just going to affect these 85 kids. We're talking about 85 kids next year and 85 kids the year after that. This is getting this thing started. Next year, they're going to be in here asking for money again, I'm sure, but they're not going to be asking for $9,000. They'll be asking for a smaller amount. So this, to me, is actually, what we're doing is we're investing in the future on it. That's the way I look at it.
And it shines a better light on Josh and myself being in law enforcement. There's a few of these families, they've seen me in uniform, seen me take somebody out of their house, and now they even see me in a different light, but I'm not the big bad cop.
I guess that's the way I look at it, maybe.
And I think the role model part is really important.
There's really no other activities at this time, that time of year. I mean, it does go a lot in the community for the town.
Well, you look at your other sports, your softball, your basketball, your football, the same kids start in the 7th grade and they play all the way through high school. This way you're giving some of them kids that might have a chance of being a football player, be one. Where otherwise, these coaches know, you can go up and talk to Kramer right now, and he knows exactly what his football team is going to be in 3 years. What his juniors and seniors are going to be. It's going to be the same guys that are playing 7th and 8th grade now. You start these kids younger, you're going to give some kid a chance that might never ever get it before. That's the way I look at it.
Well, I think, I agree with Tim completely, but we have to look at the economic impact that this is going to have on the city too. It's going to increase the sales tax. It's going to bring other cities into the city and other players from elsewhere. I think we ought to just go ahead and provide the 9,000.
I see us I see us vote 5,000 or 6,000 to a flash in the pan. You know, I mean,
Like the airport.
Like the Parks and Rec guy, 17,000.
Now, well, I want to remind you folks of all of one thing. This council has held the line on your taxes, whether you like to admit it or not.
For 3 years.
For 3 years. It isn't done by just doling out money every week to just everything that comes down the pike. So I'm gonna get off the soapbox, but I want you all to realize, we didn't do that by just giving money out to everybody that came down the pipe. We done it by being a little more responsible than previous councils. So that's why I'm kind of a stickler when it comes to actually doing things the right way. And contingency is, it's not for stuff like this, but I'm just one vote.
Well, Wes, with that being said, I respect that, but Mike had just mentioned that his organization, they have to give back to the community. Why not tap that resource? If all those kids have to give back to the community.
If we had the money, I agree with you 100%. I would.
And I didn't forget that part, Mike.
And mow your lawns and get the money back that way.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Can we get a
We'll figure
contract?
something out with the community service. We have lots of opportunities.
Lots of kids.
So
Mike,
that's
is
not a
there
problem.
an opportunity for we to just change it to where you charge a fee to kind of recruit some of your costs of the games? You know, maybe just put donation
That's
only
a-
to help expenses?
That's a league rule about the no fee to get in, which brings in people from, that might sit at their house all day, might come check us out, then afterwards they might go eat. I mean, it's,
But you can't do donation only, or?
we could set up a donation bucket.
Well, just
And
like Gerald brought up earlier, people do donate
And we,
anonymously and things like that. so.
And we have the opportunity to we have to have a concession stand at the games. We could run that, or we could give it to the booster club to run, or we could give it to, is it the juniors here in town put on the prom? Or how does that work? The juniors
Yeah,
could
the
have
juniors.
our 2 concession stands.
Or why couldn't you use that money yourself to pay your, part of your,
We could, or we could pay it forward.
normally you pay yourself till you get money to pay it for?
Well, at that point, we'll either be there or we won't.
Yeah, that, the money they get for that will be what they'll use for next year, so they won't be in here asking us for a.
Exactly.
Yes.
Well, this is the first.
As a past employer of many of the young people in this town, the ones who played in sports were our very best employees. They worked the hardest, they were always there. They needed the time off for the games and the practice. But the difference between the young people with responsibilities and the ones who don't have it was huge. And so I think I'm not part of the committee here, but I think it's a very valuable thing to offer to our young people.
Thank you.
What I have to say is, I see how you're trying to get through this year, but the suggestion was there to be part of the youth program for next year and get into the budget process now for next year. But this is an ongoing thing. It won't be coming hand in hand every year. At least you get a plan system that have plan, you can see how your program goes and your needs and bring it to the city as a regular budget item next year. We'll try to get through this.
Yeah, we're having to redo the summer rec program next year anyway because we're losing our key people. So, you know, it'd be a good time to talk about how we address next year at budget time. But I'd like to kind of keep us moving here where.
I'd like to make a motion that we pay them the $9,895 that they need.
There's already a motion on the floor in a second.
For the summer rec.
I'll amend my motion. if
You have to rescind it.
Or rescind it, I guess, if you want to make it, but my thought is we need to find out what our contingency fund is right now.
I mean, with some of the talk here, you may want to consider sales tax money going in to help pay for some of what we have here. And one other thought while we're sitting here, we haven't approached the bid board, and the bid board does set aside 15% of their annual budget for community projects. And I know they've committed to fixing the gazebo and putting the lights on the waterfall, but maybe worth a trip to visit with that board to see if they could put a couple $1,000s towards this as well.
All right, where are we at?
I rescinded it if you would like to go ahead.
And I may rescind the second.
Yeah, you have to rescind.
I'll make the motion that we pay the $9,895.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
You said no.
Raise your hands, or whatever's easiest here. 4 and 4. You guys are splitting it on.
4 and 4. You can't break
can't
tie on
break
money.
money.
Well, we use money for assessments. Why aren't we using money for children? You know, for assessments for children. Why aren't we using it directly for them? I mean, if you can come up with a plan to help supply the money next year, I mean, your kids is where it's at. That's your future.
We may not have enough money in our budget to pay for everything that we normally did last year. It's pretty tough to budget until you go through a budget process.
I understand budget.
No, you don't apparently.
Georgia can
I
make
do.
it if she wants to. or
I have a
I'll
different
make it.
background.
But I wanted to make a different motion.
Can I say something about that? Do you need that tonight? I mean, if Harley could talk to his other group tomorrow and see if they donate money, but we still have to make a motion tonight to give.
But they could donate that regardless of what's
You
in
could
it.
make a motion with
Right, I mean-
contingency.
With contingent, yeah.
Can we,
I mean, I want to give them some money.
I do too.
I don't want to give them $9,000.
Can I make the motion?
But I don't think I ought to buy a shirt for my
I
kid.
think
I'll
so.
make the motion, Harley.
Yeah.
Okay. Basically what Georgia said, that we take whatever is in the fund, what is it?
Summer rec.
Summer rec.
Summer rec, yeah.
Right, and give that to you. And I don't know how you would handle it without an amount on it, because you need an amount before you order some of those things.
Could you give me an amount to make that?
We can get a close enough estimate. We know what we're paying for salaries for all of the coaches and the people doing the training for the summer rec program, and we're down to the end of it. We've got 7 or 8 that haven't turned in their timesheets yet, that we always have to pull an eye teeth to get them to turn in
Would
their
you make it
timesheet.
3,000 then? Say if they do that?
We'll just send them a thank you note for the donation to the Black Hill football.
There you go, there you go, just not make the
Can we
paper.
do a dollar amount?
Yes, you can do it either way. You can either take the balance, and I'll do an estimate of what that balance is gonna be, and we'll use that, or you can use
Balance is
specific
fine, whatever.
dollars.
Balance.
Actually, I think if we did a 3,000, like I had said, we could do it like that, if that's the best.
Maybe that group will come up with 3,000.
I'll make it 3,000 then.
Second.
Oh. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Can I do a hallelujah or a motion carried? And come to the budget here. Okay. Thank you, Mike. All right, so that was, we are giving them 3,000. Just to make sure we're clear.
Just get with me, we'll come see.
Yeah.
They will be setting budget hearings next council meeting, so we don't have any actual meeting dates yet. But we'll talk about what kind of amount needs to get into the
Yeah, definitely
request.
in the next couple of weeks, we need a good number for next year. Okay.
Storm drains.
Even more exciting, storm drains.
Well, I guess being exciting thing is you have to be living next to one that's plugged up. I was tasked to look at 3 different areas here in town. Are the Dakotas here by chance?
They have faith in you.
Tracy.
What's that?
They have full faith in you to.
Oh.
Use it like it.
Okay.
The Dakotas have faith in you, she said.
Well, either that or they didn't know what was going to happen.
Is it on?
Okay,
I don't think
that's
so.
not on. No, it says it's on. Okay.
Thank you. You're welcome to use
That's right.
this
The
one.
battery must be dead. This one's gonna get.
This one will keep me quiet during the presentation. I gave you your chance.
Okay.
Oh, much better.
Okay, that has a green light. Now, I did prepare some drawings. They're available for anyone who wants them, particularly for anyone who's directly affected, lives next to some of these drainage areas. I was tasked to look at 3 areas at this point. And of course, this is by no means inclusive of all the drainage problems in Hot Springs. I've been kind of whining and crying a little bit about drainage issues for a long, long time, and would really like to start, seeing a full-scale plan to move forward on, the big picture that we have with drainage issues. However, these 3 areas, the first one is up on Hickory Street here in town. I guess I'll kind of stand back a little bit here so that I'm not in front of somebody. Hickory is probably one of our least developed streets in town. It's just pretty much a rough, it's got a little bit of millings on it, mostly gravel. It has been graded one way and then graded another way over the years, and currently it discharges all the water pretty much that comes onto it down into a canyon that ultimately winds up behind the Dakota property. And then of course it comes through there and finds its way through backyards until it finally gets down to Minnetonka Avenue. The total amount of drainage area there on that is actually about 8 acres. When I looked at that, with a total Google Earth map, we're not going to solve, we're not going to make the water for 8 acres just disappear. I mean, that's not going to happen. We live in a canyon. I mean, our whole community is a funnel. It all runs downhill. But what we can do is we can improve how this water behaves. We can slow it down. We can clear it up, clean it up as it makes its journey downhill. And so what I did, I don't know if there's really, can I just lay this out in front of you here, Caroline? So that I can kind of reference to it as well. Like I say, it's available, particularly for those of you who would be directly involved with this. We've got Area 1, which is Hickory Street, and what I've done is I've come up with some immediate recommendations as well as long-term recommendations. And the immediate recommendations are things that are very viable and feasible to do in the very near term that are not high budget items. And I've talked with Billy Morrow, our street foreman, about this. We've looked at it and studied it, and also the little task committee, Dwight and Tim, we went and looked at this. And our proposal for immediate solutions to start helping this out will be to regrade the street to get the water back, so it stays on the east side, and then take that gully or that ditch that's pretty much along there, excavate it some, put some riprap all along there so that the water that goes in there doesn't create a deeper channel and cause more problems, accelerating going down the hill. We also talked a little bit about some small little check dam devices. They're just little mounds that help slow that water down. Now when we get down to the bottom of the hill, obviously we still have water, and it has no real defined place to go at this point. However, I looked at the drainage patterns for what's currently happening, and it does split. Some of it goes down Edgewood Terrace, some of it goes down Lookout. This will take a little bit more of it towards Edgewood Terrace. Hopefully it is cleaned up, slowed down, and will follow its way down Edgewood Terrace. You're still going to have water, but we're trying to keep it from damaging private property as much as possible. Keep it out in the public right of way and get it on down the street. And that is that is part of our immediate recommendation there. The other thing is there is an alley that runs between the Dakota property and his neighboring property. And that alley is actually platted all the way up through that canyon. But we would regrade just a short portion of that there again presently it's silted in, and when water comes down, it spills over directly, goes into his garage up against his buildings. And it's very simple to just regrade that, put a little bit of riprap in there as well to stabilize it, and then reshape it where it comes out of the street, to keep it out in the street. Those are the immediate recommendations. Long term, we could look at a storm inlet or some kind of a storm drain down further to get it to Minnetonka. But there's only one big problem with that. The pipe in Minnetonka is already overloaded. So if we're putting more water into it faster, it's just going to be out on the street. So, drainage is sort of like taking, I guess I'll relate it to a tree. You've got to have a big trunk to hold up the branches. And that's part of our problem here. We don't have a very big trunk in a lot of places. So as the town has expanded, there's more hard surfaces, more roofs, those things all add up and put more and more water coming from the branches down into the, into the trunk. So I think the immediate recommendations would really help this situation. It's something that can be accomplished with our, street crew. I've already talked to Billy about this. He has a stockpile of riprap already on hand out at the street shop, and so we wouldn't even have to be going out and purchasing additional riprap from Hills Materials at this point. The only downside is if we keep going on beyond this, obviously we're going to have to buy some riprap at some point. And I did talk to Hills Materials today about the price on riprap. It does run about $30 a ton, which is considerably more expensive than base course, which kind of baffles me because they don't have to do as much work to crush big rocks as small rocks, but that's their price. So that is really what we have in mind for Hickory Street. It's cleaning it up, slowing it down, and getting the street regraded so that we don't have this water spilling out onto the sides, going down and just adding to what's already going to come naturally in that canyon. Now, the canyon itself, it's a natural area, it's a wild area. We really can't, it's private land. So we really can't stop the water that's on private land and make that situation a whole lot different, but maybe we can at least stop what's coming down the street. So that is the first area that I was tasked to look at, that I and those of the group. The next area is probably one of our most perennial problems, and that is up by the school administration building in that alley between 16th and 17th Streets. That particular spot has been a problem for a long time. It's the lowest place around in that whole neighborhood. It's literally a basin. And chances are there was an original drainage that came in there and was slowly filled up. And what we've got back in there is we've got a storm sewer that has two different inlets. It's got one that's in the middle of the alley that is flat, that's a drive-over storm sewer with a grate. And then we've got an inlet mouth type one, what they sometimes refer to as a Sioux Falls inlet, that is just right adjacent to it. And what happens is when you get a big intense rainstorm, usually with hail and wind, is there's so much hail and there's so much leaves and debris that it comes in there and plugs up those inlets. And then of course it backs up. And you know, my map is surveyed around there. You have to go quite a ways before you actually get to level ground to where water that's backed up can start going over. That alley intersection is 21 inches below University. I mean, that's what you have to get to just to let water start coming out of there. So we've considered some different ideas, kicked around some things, but you know, it comes back to the real problem is debris. How can we handle that better? And the proposal that I am going to put forth as an immediate recommendation for this, there again is not a high budget item. We have that Sioux Falls storm box there. We can take the top off of it, reconstruct it to make it more of a vertical, I guess to describe it, maybe almost like a beehive entrance, where it has a large mouth inlet with pipes that are, you know, a grate. Obviously, we don't want to suck a small child in there. They're 4 inches apart and can take a lot more of that debris and get it down into the storm sewer. And that is, you know, that's really one of, I think, something that would be worth looking into and trying in that area, because we don't have to change the grade of anything else. We just work on that one box so that it can actually flow when we have a lot of water with debris coming in there, because that's the big problem. You know, there's a lot of water comes down through there. That actually is about an 80-acre drainage. You know, a lot of times when we think about land in town, we don't think in terms of acres. Well, it's 80 acres. That's a lot of land, and a lot of it all comes to there. Ultimately, it's being asked to be held by a 48 to 54-inch pipe that goes down under the viaduct. And, you know, a calculation of a heavy rainstorm, that many acres, and how much water of that size of pipe can flow, the numbers don't match up. I mean, the pipe is overloaded. You see that when we have a big rain. You know, it's blowing out the inlets.
That pipe going into it isn't 54 inches, it's a lot smaller.
Right, and that pipe in that intersection.
If you look at those drop inlets, it's only half open.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at it, you can tell there's not enough opening going into the pipe.
No, there's not. You know, another thing that we need to do is we need to actually inspect the pipe going down University, especially as it goes down the viaduct, to make sure that it doesn't have, you know, it could have something caught in there. I mean, it could have a log, it could have, you know, I mean, not a log, but I mean, it could have something that's built up over the years that could also be causing a problem. So that's the very first thing we need to do, is look at that. And then if we can at least get the clogging problem alleviated to some extent, it's going to help us. Is it going to solve the problem entirely? Probably not, because like I just said, those pipes just aren't big enough. And that's out in University. I mean, they're really not. That particular pipe there, as far as I can tell, was not upgraded when they did the University project back in 1995. They did add one that goes over by Case Auditorium, and that helps a lot with the north side of University. But the south side really has this one place to go. But at least getting it so it doesn't clog up so bad might really help us. So that's part of the recommendation for that one. And finally, the third area that I looked at is Main Street, the actual street name Main Street, which is, you know, runs north from the Evans Hotel by the phone company behind all the buildings there on North River Street. This street has an opposite problem. In a lot of ways, it is extremely flat. There is just virtually no grade in there. It actually has almost a little bit of a pocket in the middle. The amount of water is not large there, but the fact it can't move is a real issue. And it's worse in the wintertime because any small amount of snow at all, and it dams it up, it freezes, and you've got, issues where the water can overtop the sidewalk. The curb and gutter there is marginal. Some places there's been some new curb that's been poured directly behind, maybe an individual property, but then you go, 50 feet the other way and there might not be any curb and gutter at all. So that area, the immediate short-term recommendation is that if we can obtain an easement, a small drainage easement to put just a little open channel, concrete like curb drain that goes by that open lot and takes that water out to North River Street. That would alleviate some of that pooling and get that water out there. And the volume is not so great that we're going to be, putting a big flood out on North River Street. That would be something there again that's not, a hugely expensive thing to do. Longer term, it's certainly arguable that Main Street needs to be reconstructed to some extent. The curb and gutter is broken and missing in a lot of places. The grade is wavy, but that's a much larger project. I mean, when we start talking streets, reconstruction, then we're very quickly into something that has to be budgeted for a lot further out in advance. So anyway, that's the report that we have come up with and our recommendations. So I guess if there's any questions, I'll answer them. I'll leave these drawings for anyone. I'll just leave them here. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Gary Hansen. We live on 101 South 5th Street on the corner of University.
Okay.
And since last August, the house is 1937. We haven't had any water problems till last August. The city did some paving in front of the house above us, overlay for the gravel. And
Okay.
that's on University, so the north side is all curb and gutter. Our side was all ruts and gravel. And
Oh, you're the house with the
Yeah,
ditch?
with that one.
yeah, the 5-foot ditch.
Yeah, the ditch. Okay.
And the neighbors above us have put in homemade curbs. They've pick and shovel ditches and stuff like that, and it just keeps erosion. Well, in August, when they did the pavement, it pitched the road away from the alley, has a manhole, and it looks like it had a culvert to the east side of the alley that made a 90 and came down in that ditch way back when. Well, they pitched that water out into the street, so it came back into the top ditch, jumped the banks. We had about 2 inches of water in our backyard, and it's coming in our basement windows.
Okay.
So they came out and they dug the ditch and burned it up. In about another 3 weeks, it rained again, and the water came off the alley over the retaining wall and back out of the ditch into our basement again, so we flooded twice. And now it's come down and it's washed our driveway out over into the shrubs by the front door. There used to be flagstone, that's all pretty well washed away. The ditch is a safety hazard. And then the city came back and put about 4 loads or 5 loads of asphalt, which covered the gravel up, and they ran their tractor tires by each driveway to be a diverter for the water. Well, the water comes from, what would that be? Sixth and 7th and 8th, it comes down that dirt, it jumps across there. Every rain, the city has at least 2 or 3 workers on a backhoe on 5th and University, picking up all that gravel. I think a couple of years ago, you almost fell in the alley because the ditches are so bad, it erodes. I mean, the ditch is actually eroded below the culvert, and on our driveway, there's some flagstone or whatever it is. And you actually see holes in there, so it's coming from somewhere else. I don't think a sinkhole. And now they just did that project up on 6th Street. Is that 6th Street? 4th Street. I get used because they used to go down the main and up to the... But anyway, they did that, but that's sort of at the crown of University. But instead of taking that east side and putting a little grade where it runs off the crown to down the hill, it's actually sloped, so it comes across that street, pours down Albany Street, the alley, and University. And there's a lot of water comes off that. And we've expended a couple $1,000s of our own money trying to put drainage tile in there. And it's an old house, so we're getting little cracks in our basement. Our basement floor is damp now, it never been damp before. So I just an official deal, I just want to get on your list. We've written emails, we've had city officials out there, crews and all that, and the last couple of weeks, nobody answers. So I guess the irritating thing is no response. We've had Carl out there, and he was very helpful last week. So we just want to get on the list and try to get it correct before the rain starts again.
I was just out there and I noticed that the culvert going under their driveway to the garage, that goes into the garage, that culvert may be this wide, but it's this much dirt. It's all plugged up back underneath. So water can't run, it's got to get around it somehow.
We tore it's a little garage, it's part of the house, but we tore the driveway out. I just hauled
Today, hauled it away.
7,000 pounds of concrete to the dump today because the driveway is elevated and it acted like a dam from the backyard. And the only way you could do the water was dig a ditch and run it into the neighbor's house, which sits lower than ours, so we're open that up. So we opened that up and put some drain tile in there, but it still comes into the backyard and sits in the backyard. And, you know, I know the city came out and did the paving, and there's a lot of money. They must have been 4 or 5 asphalt trucks, so. But it's not an eyeball project. It needs to be engineered and probably some surveying done and a plan on there. I guess it really needs a curb and gutter is what it needs, but.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, I just want to get on, we want to get on the list because we're retired now. We can't afford to keep pouring hundreds of dollars into the.
Well, that's another one of those. And that part of town, we've got all those alleys, we get a lot of water that comes down. And as a long-term plan, I really want to do some things that slow down, clean up, you know, get that water cleaned up. Because all those alleys up there, they all wash down onto 5th Street, 6th Street, cause all sorts of issues.
And the other thing is when they laid the asphalt, where you come into our little sidewalk, it's about 18 inches high, the asphalt, and it drops off. I mean, that doesn't even meet a minimum ADA standard or anything.
Halloween, we had to block that with the car so the children didn't try to go in.
I mean, it's just, I mean, it's a good intention, but it's not done correctly. And that, in my opinion, is a waste of money. So.
Yeah, that was, you know, just as maintenance thing the street department did, you know, wasn't actually.
Yeah, I appreciate their efforts.
Yeah.
I appreciate their efforts, but it's not solving the problem.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to go a long-term solution. We need to have some kind of
Yeah, we need to go back in there and do something more significant with it, so be on the list. Yeah.
What happened to our list that we started 3 years ago?
Oh, I still have it. Oh, yeah, we still have that list. It's a pretty long list, actually. So, question for me?
I'd like to get our list, our names towards the top of the list.
Okay.
No, I don't have good knees. I worry about going down that step that was made.
Well, she fell in the ditch yesterday.
I felt shush. I didn't tell anybody.
And she couldn't get out, and I was downstairs, so I didn't hear it. So he laid there for a little bit.
Shut up!
It's like that commercial.
My story. No, listen. No, I pointed out to Carl how deep the ditch was and how wide, and we always keep our garbage cans in a certain place, so we just pull them out. But it kept getting wider and wider and deeper, and so I was so embarrassed. I went to take the garbage out, and it was a pretty heavy load, and I couldn't flip the lid up, and I finally flipped it up, and it did a swerve and knocked me flat on my back in that big, huge ditch. Because it's huge.
Sort of like that TV commercial.
So Gary, I go, because there was no room for me to put my feet to stand up. It was all rocks. So anyway, Gary said, we had just talked to Carl. He said, it's not a timely time for you to tell anybody about this. But no, I would.
We are going to put greater focus on working on our drainage problems. That's why Tracy's here tonight.
So we appreciate it. We just want to give our 2
And
10
Carl
cents.
is talking in my ear as well. So we will definitely continue to look at those. These were just the first 3 that we chose to focus on this week. And we know there's a lot more, and we'll definitely consider you in the next 3 maybe, or however we proceed. But we've got a lot more on our agenda, so thank you, Tracy.
Thank you, Gary.
Thanks, Dwight. Thanks, Tim, for working on this.
I won't let it go.
And he won't let it go. And I've asked Tracy to move forward with the proposals. So we're going to try to start getting these things fixed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep, thanks, Tracy.
Tracy, don't leave.
Tracy, don't leave. Wow.
Well, I've got another appointment. You need me for the airport thing for just a moment? Is that next?
Well, they're patiently waiting for the handicap parking, I think, as well. So can we quickly do that
Yeah, let me just,
and then get to the airport? You got 5 minutes, Tracy, or?
yeah,
Okay.
I'm on call for water, so I better make sure.
Oh.
it's on water related.
Please don't have a water-related thing.
I can do that handicap thing now with public safety.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The state wrote a letter to the city, because Scott wrote them. And they says that we ought to allow this handicap parking. They said, as a matter of fact, we need one spot per 25 parking spots. One handicap per 25 parking spaces, according to DOT. So I want to make a motion that we go ahead and go down there and paint that properly and get some signs put up.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I got a question, I guess, why did it become an issue?
Because there's no handicap parking on that side of the street at all.
Well, it says it's painted blue, so I guess,
Well, they took it upon themselves to paint it.
I see.
It wasn't done properly by the city. So now it can be.
And you understand, we don't own that street. That's the highway.
State.
Okay. That's why DOT said that we have to just go ahead and do it. So,
I was just questioning.
But there's a couple of other different places in town that need handicap parking.
Yes, Scott's gonna
besides.
look into this a little bit more per the state requirement for one every 25, but given that it's already blue, where did we end up there? Did we pass this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were rushing it right through there.
All right, so we're going to the airport water line, the hangar. Ed, Tracy's looking like he's working on an issue out in that lobby there, but
Yeah.
you can get us going.
I went in and talked to Tracy, and the cost, if the city hired people to do it, construction company, it would run about $4,500. But he said since it'd be in-house, it'd be quite a bit less. The pipe and everything's been paid for. The only thing that hasn't been, the airport doesn't have the funding for it, is the hydrant. And Tracy could,
and the amount of hours we're putting the pipe in.
Good, you gotta go.
So the drawings will be at City Hall, right? Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Ed, or Craig.
If the fire department wants to pay for all the materials and the labor to put in, I have no problem with it. Because they don't have any, airport don't have any money to do it. So if the water department wants to fund it, I have no problem with it.
Well, this is an issue that is not in the city,
Right?
but
But it's city property.
I understand that.
And
So can we take funds from the water department?
they already paid for the hydrant, I don't know.
They paid for the hydrant and all the pipe is there.
Yeah.
It just needs to be
Put in.
ditched and,
The airport paid for the pipe.
huh?
The airport paid for the pipe.
Out of what money?
The
I thought
money-
they didn't have any money.
They don't. That took all their money, didn't it, Harley?
The budget right now is, was a $57,000 budget. We've got the hangar expense that went into this because there was some assumptions that were being made on some revenue that was coming in, plus it'll be an income producing hangar, so we're fronting the money for that new hangar at the tune of $58,245. So we've got about $10,000 left in the budget, which is going to be cutting very close to making it through the end of the year. We had some additional expenses for weed control that we talked about earlier that are also in there. So Those were extra expenses that the council had allowed to take place, so at some point we'll be supplementing that budget to cover those additional expenses. So they really don't have the money in the airport budget to be doing this project at this point.
Well, that's what I said, if the water department wants to float them, pay for it, if they can do it, I have no problem with putting it in. But they don't have the money to do it.
Well, the materials been paid for out of the existing budget.
No,
That's correct.
except for the hydrant.
Except for that.
I guess I look at this some as, that's part of the water infrastructure of the town, even though it is out of town. Is it right that the water department has to pay to put it in? I don't know, if the line breaks coming to the Mueller Center here, are we gonna hire it out? Or are we gonna get the city crews in here?
Well, I have no problem doing it, but, if they're paying their own wage, usually when the water department works with the sewer or the streets, it comes out of the street department's budget or the sewer department's budget. And that's what I'm saying, they're gonna dig for the airport, but they don't have the money to pay the water department. That's what I'm saying, if the water department wants to pay for it, I have no problem doing it. That's just me, so I'm the only one vote.
Eventually, we're gonna get some money off some hay, right? Hopefully.
Yeah.
And that stuff Gary
And some crops, but that won't be for a few months.
Yeah, we got 228 bales of hay out there that we get 40% of.
And you're gonna volunteer your wages when we run out of money.
Well, that's not much anyway.
That other hydrant was supposed to also provide possible income, right?
No, they're just gonna use it to fill
I thought they
a
said
crop duster plate.
they get paid for that, so.
It's also for fire protection in the future, we got a new glider hanger.
But they could
Insurance.
run hose from the other one, didn't they?
No, that's the white, I showed him this.
Looked at it this weekend, that's a long run.
What
It'd
is
be a lot of fire hoses.
And I'd like us to look at the cost of losing that investment versus the cost, this cost of running some pipe in the ground.
Well, who's gonna dig the ditch?
Well, water department has to,
Okay? And who's gonna put the pipe in?
water department has to.
And they can put in the hydrant?
Oh, yeah.
And we gotta have the city do it, it's on city property.
I agree. I think that it needs to get done. We have income coming from our gliders here shortly and also all the
The
gravel.
gliders are paying for this new hangar.
Oh, well.
Nobody's saying that we shouldn't do it, it's just a matter of when do you do it? Do you do it before you have the money, or do you wait and you do it properly?
It's probably a good idea to do it
Can
before
I
the
talk,
fire.
Georgia?
Before the fire.
Well, they've had
Starts.
backhoe there twice already, and
Yeah.
we've got stopped.
But no one told them to do it, I mean.
Can we do this by making a motion to have the city water department go out there, dig the ditch, put in the pipe, put in the hydrant, and get it done with?
You sure can, but.
Then I make that motion.
That's who's gonna pay for it.
Yeah,
Who's
who's
gonna
gonna
pay
pay for it?
This,
Water department?
the city will pay for it.
No, one department has to pay for it.
All
Which
right,
department?
water department.
Okay, that's
And
all
we'll
I'm asking.
budget them some extra money next year.
So is that your motion?
That's my motion. Get the city water department.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Motion
motion carried. Where are we? Oh my gosh, we still have a lot to go. Okay. The audit, the 2012 audit. Thanks, Ed.
The Audit General for the state of South Dakota has notified the city that they've reviewed and accepted the audit for the ending December 31st of 2012. Their review was limited to the report and did not include any review of work papers, which is normal for legislative audit to do that. The notice of findings, which are 4 of them in the audit, and it's available for anyone that wants to come in and take a look at it and see what those findings are, will be published in the paper if it hasn't already been. The last item in the letter says, please present a copy of this letter to the governing board, which we're doing tonight, and indicate and request acceptance of the 2012 audit.
Motion to accept the 2012 audit.
And I'll second it.
Plus the tractor storage.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We got one.
All right, thank you.
And it's
The temporary alcoholic beverage license for the American Legion for the carnival.
I'd make that motion.
away from this.
Second.
All in
Need to ask
favor?
a question.
Yes,
We can ask questions of him?
yes, you may. I can't answer, but you can ask.
Well, I was hoping it is.
I'll try.
Is this for in the park?
Insurance company.
No, I believe it is just their,
No,
they wanna
that's
open
gonna
that
be,
side garage thing,
Could be another
so
fixed
alcohol there, I believe. I can't speak on behalf of them, but
But they're gonna sell alcohol for people to carry out into the carnival and stuff?
No.
no,
They have to stay right there and drink it?
Yes.
There's no closed area
it's
there.
gonna be their parking lot
They put
area,
up a fence?
Won't provide.
If they serve alcohol, that's what we require.
not alcohol, beer.
It's all malt beverage, it's not,
Is that,
it is not checked for liquor, it is just malt beverage.
No liquor.
oh, okay. Okay.
All right.
Back on.
And before we go any further on this, this is, they didn't realize that they had to do this a month in advance. So they got it in quick. So, and it was only by me telling them they better do something that they did it.
I see they sold this over the 4th of July and they didn't ask for that.
They're learning. So I think I have a motion and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Same song, different day. American Legion for the traveling wall.
I make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Wes, Brookside Park equipment and sprinkler system.
Well, we budgeted the money last year for the park equipment, and I believe we budgeted the money for the sprinkler system the year before. Neither has happened. I'd like to see us start getting some bids on some park equipment and get it purchased, because we kind of have an idea where we can put it.
Is that a motion?
I'd make a motion, we get some bids and get that playground equipment installed. I mean,
I'll second it.
But I think we have some discussion.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Yeah, I'm just, it's late.
Okay.
So Matt's plan is finalized for Brookside?
we don't need Matt's plan. He's already given us a little bit of an overview on that, and we've already looked at the property. He's not gonna plan this, Gerald. We already know that. He's not gonna plan Brookside Park. It was never part of this.
I thought it was part of the whole package.
So Tracy's looked at it. I mean, we've looked at it. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory where you put a picnic shelter, a bathroom, and playground equipment.
Well, what exactly is going on? I mean, I went to your thing, but we never heard anything about anything else. And now you
Because
want to put.
Brookside Park was never, he gave us a brief, kind of an idea, and he
Well,
threw it
I'd
out.
like to see the plans before you do anything. I mean, I think the public would probably like to have a say in what happens down there.
Stop
That's
at
a
City
very,
Hall and Harley can show you the
that's a
picture.
very important part
I realize that.
to this town.
But that parks plan was never going to encompass every park in Hot Springs. He did an overview of all the parks,
Right.
but
And
his main
assessment.
deal is to plan
What was
Butler
the
Park.
assessment? What was the assessment?
a needs assessment. He's still working on it. He'll be here Wednesday at 3:30 at City
Can we
Hall.
wait until the needs assessment gets in before we decide on the equipment and people
We
that
can
were
get
involved, they get a chance to go in and
In
and
a year,
look at-
in a year from now, the money will be gone.
well, I'm just saying a couple weeks.
And that's fine, but we can get bids. We can at least start getting bids for playground equipment.
Wes, does that bid for the playground equipment include a bathroom? I mean, if you're gonna have all that equipment down there,
We'll have to budget money next year for the bathroom, because the bathroom we're talking about doing is gonna be probably $40,000.
so what, I mean, Could you get porta potties down there? I mean, when you
Possibly.
have kids, when you have kids down there.
We've discussed this. I mean, there used to be bathrooms there. The city took them out.
What do they do for bathrooms now? There's kids all over that park all day long.
That's scary.
Go swimming.
I asked the mayor if he could put this wooden thing, and she said no.
Well, but that is, I mean, it was as a health
Exposed
issue.
platform.
As a health issue, that should be in there if we're gonna
I'll show you a picture
encourage
of some
kids
campgrounds
for
in
playground
northern
equipment,
Minnesota,
stuff
and
like
that's what
that,
it
that should be
is.
in.
It's a platform.
There's some playground equipment there now.
There is. No, but it's like older than me.
Well, that's kind of one of our only solutions at this point is get some, some porta potties put down there. Get a contract with Sanders or somebody, somebody that does it.
City owns two, if we just pick them up.
But if you notice, we just paid to have Sanders.
But the thing is, so that you can move forward with this, I mean.
We've
budget,
discussed
let's get it done.
bathrooms. I mean, I guess it's one of the deals. What do you do first? Do you buy the playground equipment? Do you buy the bathroom? What do you?
Well, if you got porta potties, get your equipment and put porta potties up there. I mean,
City doesn't own any porta potty.
Vandalized.
They just need like a little fixing up. They don't need much. Not, I don't know why we don't do it. We rent them every year instead of fixing ones we have.
Who cleans them?
Sanders.
Well, we can have ours pumped out too. There's a lot of people that do that, but, we have to pay to have them when we have them already.
One of the items that we've been discussing internally and I had on the agenda under my report was what Kim already brought up, is the land and water conservation grant funding that was out there. And we'd already visited with Tracy and the mayor that we would put in a grant application for the bathrooms at Brookside Park. And we won't be able to do both, so we'll have to have a discussion on whether it's a splash pad or a...
Probably the bathrooms are more important.
See, it all comes down to what goes first.
Gerald?
So we're gonna do this in-house, in other words, we're gonna have Tracy do a CAD drawing, since we won't be paying
For the park?
Paying Matt to do it
I think there already is a drawing.
There is.
all to scale and.
No,
It's not that fancy, but you can tell where the
we're not
shelter
designing
will be, the
Wrigley Field,
restroom.
Gerald.
Okay, I guess why I'm asking that question is because when you order your playground equipment, is it gonna be in a layout this way, or is it gonna be in a square this way? Because the topography down there is limited.
Well, yeah, we know that. You can look at it, you can tell it's gonna be laid out this way.
Okay,
Because
so-
it slopes off.
Okay, that's what I was asking about the CAD drawing.
Yep. Come down and see what we have already. There's the meeting on Wednesday at 3:30, and then there's another meeting on the 30th at 3:30 as well with Matt, so you're all welcome. And I'm not sure where we're at or what we're doing here, Wes.
You have a motion and a second to go out for bids for playground equipment for Brookside. Is where you're
I
at.
think we're still having a discussion.
I just turned that
I can't make motions. Are we done discussing? Is what I want to make sure. We are. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for the playground equipment. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Sprinkler systems at Brookside.
That was too.
Yeah.
Sure.
We budgeted that money too, I guess. Is it still there, Harley?
You had $30,000 for playground equipment, $25,000 for a sprinkler system in the 2014 budget. You've committed $17,500 to a master planning process, which in my opinion should come out of that money, so you have $3,800 to work with for the rest of this year. $38,000.
I need to relook.
55,000 minus 17,500 is
I
what you
want
have
to look
left.
at this audit a little bit better.
Come on down.
I mean, we know,
Right here.
Stand in line.
we know that once we put our playground equipment in, and you have a proposed area for a picnic shelter and a bathroom, I mean, we can, you about got to have that stuff before you put the sprinkler in. I kind of realize that. So do you take that money and do you add that? So I know what your thoughts are.
You're a mind reader, huh?
Yeah, you
Noted,
want to,
A lot.
you want to get and I do too. I want a year-round bathroom
Okay.
down at Brookside Park. But it's expensive. But we need it. I mean, we truly do. I mean, we need several because our bathrooms are locked down at the end of August and you don't see them again until the middle of the next year.
Basically, there's water and power right there. The sewer's right there too. I mean, everything you need.
Used to be a bathroom right there too.
If they were there.
I don't understand why it's so expensive when we already have the infrastructure there.
Well, to get that pre-built shelter, which we discussed, I think we can probably do a lot cheaper if we just done something
Okay.
ourselves. So I guess
Just the water department building.
it's up to you guys to decide, I guess.
The pre-built structure was one for 38.
It was actually about, it was 48, I think, 40.
I suppose, are they concrete, so they're vandal-proof
Yep.
and everything? I think that's what
Well, we need to build it indestructible.
if we do it ourselves. I don't know if we'll be able to cast that.
Out of steel.
Well, to move forward here, we don't have, unfortunately, the restroom on here, but we do have a sprinkler system on here, so
But
what do we
don't
want
have
to
enough
do?
for it.
Hmm?
We don't have enough for it. If we have to either take away from the playground equipment or the sprinkler system.
So we're gonna pass on the sprinkler system until everything else is done.
I think I would if it was me, but
I agree with that.
Caroline, that's a question.
The sprinkler system, motion for that's already been approved and passed in years past. You were on the council when that was passed. So there is a motion, it has been passed to have a sprinkler system there. I just didn't put a date on it years ago and still waiting.
And you'll continue to wait.
I know.
So I guess with like 2 weeks under my belt here, I'm not sure what we do now about the item on the agenda. We don't have restrooms on the agenda. We do have the sprinkler system that supposedly passed before. So what are we saying?
Motion to table the sprinkler system.
Second.
You table something.
All in favor? Opposed?
I oppose.
Okay.
yeah, I really don't know what you do with something like that because it's one of those deals where the money it was budgeted, it was never done, and
At the end of the year, it rolls back into the general fund budget and gets reappropriated for the next year. So if the money's not spent in any one year, it rolls back into that fund and it's used to make the next year's appropriation.
So you might have already spent it.
well, that's my worst fear because that's what we do. We appropriate money and then it goes elsewhere.
Okay.
Anyhow, I
We should have
guess.
the bathroom on the agenda when we go into budget hearings.
Thank you. That's what I would like to see. And he knows that very well. So
Must be you. she's
maybe a
talking about.
bathroom in our future. Going to the last new business, the plat A, B, C, D, and E, block 1 and, or 11 and 12 capital addition. It's in your package. This is basically correcting the plat around the pro-build property and adjacent to it.
We done something with this a while back. What did we do?
We just converted to mixed use, and I think what, I went to the planning and zoning committee meeting, and basically they want to divide that property in half.
Why?
So they
I
can sell
think they
it.
can sell it separately because it's a bigger unit.
Who owns that property?
The holding company for ProBuild, it's like L&M Holdings or something like that, out of state company that ProBuild leases or rents. I'm not sure which way they do that, but for the building on land that's owned by the holding company.
And they recommended that we would,
And of these tracks, I think you got A, B, C, D, and E. All but one of those tracks, I think, are owned by that holding company. And the reason the other wasn't included is because several of those lots were landlocked and had no public access to them. And by this corrective deed, it gives legal public access to those lots.
This vacated Easton Avenue, is that where that gully is? That water runs down?
Yeah.
They don't own track A, because that's that old Shady Rest Hotel and stuff that,
Yes, that's the one property. That area is along 6th Street, from heading towards the Mueller Center from ProBuild is where the one property owner is.
So right next.
Yeah. They're only taking one, down here, but they're only taking one divider line out, or putting one in, so that it separates it into two.
I'll make, you do your motion.
I'll make.
I will make a motion.
Yeah.
I have two motion making. Okay. All in favor, or are we still discussing?
What do they plan on doing with this?
I think it's a family owns it, and I think the two girls want to make it so it's two separate parts, so they can sell, one wants to sell. And they had to make it so that the access was legal on the back side, and then subdivide the other.
how they can access the backside of it?
Because it's an alley, it is an alley.
Yes,
Does it have to go on ProBuild?
Right.
Because their property line borders our soccer field, ProBuild. So the only way they can
Hotel is
access,
actually on our property, so.
but anyway, the only way they'll access the back of that property is either across the soccer field or through ProBuild.
You know, they go on that area right below where the house is sitting, right down here, they go into the back house.
That's an alley on the side of it. Let's see that. Because that's where Houston Avenue would be.
Yes, it is.
Well, that ain't an alley.
Well, the continuation of the alley, I mean. it
But
was
that's all been
before,
vacated.
But they want it to be class, they can get into that house behind.
How do you plot something that was vacated?
They'll put it up again.
I don't know, this deal has come before us a couple of times here, and I'm kind of getting feeling bamboozled by the planning and zoning on this. I don't,
I called Scott today and asked him about it, and he said he just cleaned it up.
that's what we were told last time, we just cleaned it up.
I always thought it was corrected.
Well, that's the famous words, either cleaning it up or correcting.
I'm still,
They're isolating the storage sheds, yes.
Right, that's
So
what
they
it
can
is,
sell
it's
the
separating
storage
it from the house, so the storage sheds can be sold.
What the new lots are is what's in the black gold boundary, and all the lots that are inside that are no longer individual lots.
Black Mountain goes all the way.
This is confusing, I have to tell you, the way this is written right here, but
So instead of being lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they're putting several lots together and they're calling them tracts. So tract A, if you look at that, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lots in tract A.
7, actually.
7, okay. Tract B has several.
Well, if they just want to clean up that for where the old Shady Rest was, why is, all this is ProBuild and everything?
Yes. But the land management company was one of the main pushes to get this replatted. So they had their individual buildings at ProBuild on separate lots. So the store building is on a lot, the garage out back or the storage shed out back is on a lot. They've got another building with the shingles and stuff in it around the other side of the main store, and each one of those are on a separate tract.
and that drainage ditch goes in between them with that one back storage.
I think maybe somebody's committee ought to have Scott.
I think we ought to table this until somebody looks at this a little better.
Planning and zoning already looked at it very thoroughly, and that's what they recommended to us, is that we would accept
That
this.
doesn't mean we have to accept it.
You don't have to, I'm just saying.
I do have a motion and a second, so I think I have to take it to vote, right?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
2 or 3 ayes? 2?
I think I got 2 for sure. Darren.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. All right. Carl, Administrative Promotion Committee.
Yes, ma'am.
Report.
July 18th, we met and we discussed quite a few items. And one of them was the sales tax projections. And Harley came to us and let us know that at the end of July, we had an 8.9% increase in sales tax.
End of June, Carl.
Or end of June, I'm sorry. Mid-July, the increase had gone up to 12.5%. We also talked about contract employees and how we're going to handle their contracts. We're talking about Kathy Jersa at the clubhouse, Jason, Dave, the dog catcher, and Renee. And the admin promotion committee is going to work on 3-year terms so that these people are not looking at the end of the years and saying, do I still have a job? So we're going to look at 3-year contracts rather than 1-year contracts. The audit annual report, as was mentioned, the South Dakota audit has been accepted by the state of South Dakota. Legislative audit is aware of the 2012 findings. There is no problems with them going forward. And we have 4 names to choose from for new auditors that are going, because we lost our auditor, she quit us. So we know that some of the problems that were caused in the 2012 audit were caused by the computer system banging, by not purchasing all the different modules that were needed for banging. So we're going to look at getting those installed. We're still talking about the personnel policy. We've reviewed all the changes and we're bringing it to the council on the 4th of August for a vote.
Are you gonna
And
give us a
you
copy?
each will get a copy
Before
to
the
review.
Before that date?
Do we have them down in City Hall now?
No, the corrections haven't been made yet, so we can have them ready by tomorrow morning if you want.
Tomorrow afternoon?
Tomorrow afternoon if you want them home.
Okay. We also talked about the Housing and Redevelopment Commission, which is under the city here in Hot Springs. We talked about their payments of lieu of taxes for the Evans and the Brookside. And how that has been handled in the past. Instead of them paying taxes to the county and the county breaking it up and portioning it out, because they are a city, part of the city of Hot Springs, they don't have to pay taxes. So they pay the city in lieu of those taxes that they would have paid. Am I correct in saying that?
Built money, that's what it is, payment in lieu of taxes. The formula is gross revenue less utilities is how they calculate the amount that the taxes are calculated on. The money goes to the county and then it's distributed from there to all of the taxing entities. City, school, county, ambulance, etc.
We also discussed all of the city's current outstanding loans, which there are 4. A rural development for the Brookside project, the special assessment for Cal's side that was done out of the golf course, and the plunge, and an SRF loan, state revolving fund loan that we have on Albany. And we discussed who our outstanding lawsuits are with, and I think we're pretty well versed as to what they are. There's only 2 of them, Boulder Falls and Crowell. And now we got to start thinking about things to do. It's the end of July. This is our last meeting, working in and getting something done with the Armory building. We've already had people come to us and want to use it. I think we should start figuring out some way to get the 5,200 square foot of building used. And if you put another story in there, it makes it 10,400 square feet.
I got a question for you on that 3-year contract. What's that, how's that muddy the water if you want to terminate someone?
What?
How's that muddy the water if you want to terminate someone if you got a 3-year contract versus a 1-year?
We're a right-to-work state, so employment can be terminated at any time.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot, but I know private businesses get sued all the time for firing people, so.
So does City of Hot Springs?
Yeah, so does the city, so I'm just kind of curious, does that muddy our water a little bit? Why would other towns run off with a 1-year contract? Historically, Hot Springs always has. I mean,
No, I think it
I
was
don't
2
think,
before.
I don't think the right to work state thing falls underneath a contract. I think that's just a general employee. But if you have a contract, you got a contract. You can't just walk in and say, well, we're going to cancel your contract today.
you got to buy them out
It's got to
typically.
be stipulated in your contract.
Well, that's just it. You've got your out clause within your contract language.
It was just a thought.
You always prep for those anyway.
We hope, but
In
we've been
contracts.
caught several times we haven't.
All right, any other comments?
That's it.
Thank you. Dwight?
Yeah, Public Works met July 15th. We had a visit from the U.S. Geological Society, or
Survey.
Survey. And they want us to chip money in for a study of the Madison to do a computer model for water flow. Flow model, they call it. They're going around all the towns in the Black Hills trying to get them pitch in money. And we didn't commit to any money, but we said we might.
Why does
With the
U.S.
permission of the council.
Why does U.S. Geological Survey want to do this?
To measure the impact of more water usage in the Black Hills.
Housing growth, uranium mining.
30 years ago, they did the Black Hills hydrology study under the same process where counties and cities and the state chipped in to do the Black Hills hydrology study. 30 years later, what impact does that now have on the Black Hills and all of the water
Yeah,
sources?
it's really just computerizing it and.
Yes, basically a computer program, they can simulate what would happen with so much water use. It's more or less a study tool.
How much do they want?
They wanted $5,000 per year for 4 years.
Yeah. Get in line, we all.
We didn't
Well,
commit.
We
said might.
didn't commit and we asked them.
But it's got to be a council
County,
decision if we decide to do it.
Well, we could say, don't hurt you the one.
What's
You
that?
want jerseys with that?
I said, we could say to them, it doesn't hurt you the one.
Yeah.
5,000.
But they've got commitments for most of the northern hills towns already. Custer, I believe.
Wasn't he gonna talk to the county though as well?
Yeah, he was going to
And
the
that's why we
county.
didn't commit yet, we wanted to see what the county was doing. Partly why we didn't commit.
We talked about the Albany water project that got put on hold this year, that the street crew needs to go up and fix up the road until the water main gets fixed. Do some patchwork on the upper end Albany. State home request for sewer on 24th. They're wanting to put some houses up along that street, want sewer service. And we're wheeling and dealing on that.
24.
Right by Wes's house.
I didn't know that there was a 24.
Sure is.
23rd?
I live on the 24th.
Water fill station, discuss that again. We had a resident outside the city limits come to us wanting to buy water for 3 homes. And he's going to get with Tracy and give us a plan to look at. What's that?
Who is that?
It's a resident outside the city limits.
How far out?
It's right on the line, pretty much.
Is it out 385?
No.
No. Okay. I was just going to mention that we do have a hydrant out on some of these private property out there east of 385, past the city limits.
During the budget process, are you going to put in there for some money for street milling?
Street filling?
No, milling.
Milling?
Bring that company down.
We should have money in the budget now. We should be trying
We
to get hold
budgeted
of
quite
this
a bit for
contract.
streets.
See if we can't get something done this year, yeah.
There's like 150 for drainage.
Just depends on how much we spend on drainage, how much street money we got. What they have, 200, 300,000 for budget for streets?
I guess if we run out of money, I guess hopefully then during the budget thing, we need to get that company in here and get some streets milled, and alleys milled.
We can have water department pay for the rest.
Said it, Dwayne.
That's it.
Thank you. Craig's public safety.
I understand this will be my last report of public safety.
You read ahead. All right.
Seems that nobody showed up here, or nobody. We didn't have a police report. Animal control officer, I guess, is staying. The thing we had is that handicap park, and those people showed up for my meeting. And we took care of that tonight. Benny Hatch has done what we asked him to do. There's a new roof and that garage is painted. That's it.
Good, thank you.
So I guess we're saying there won't be a public safety no more?
I guess not. That's what that one piece of paper said.
Well, there will be.
It'll be the cops. They'll be public safety.
So who's gonna follow through to make sure, I guess, that gets done?
The mayor.
Make sure that what gets done. Are you talking about specific?
Whatever they bring, I guess, whatever, when the residents have a concern.
Well, we're gonna go through the whole new committee thing in a minute. You wanna do the cultural recreation?
We didn't have a meeting, no one showed up, except for Gerald. Gerald brought to us what he told tonight, basically. None of the, no one from the library, the Mueller Center, the golf course, no one gave a report, so.
Maybe you ain't gonna have that committee either.
Okay, Harley?
Most everything was covered on my list here, with the exception of just several of the council people will be attending the elected officials workshop in here this week, so I'm glad to see such a good involvement from Hot Springs. A lot of communities, they don't even send anybody for that. So they have, it's been talked about. I just was going to highlight that the Parks Master Plan will continue Wednesday at 3:30 this week at City Hall.
Okay, and as Wes talked about, I kind of was struggling a little bit with the committee organization that we had and took a swag at redoing the committees, handed out the proposal to the committee, council member. Set it in on your stuff when you were away. Here, I have a spare. This for you. And Brad, I have one for you. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I want the council members to look at it, think about it, give me suggestions, feedback in the committees that they're interested in. The one I already had for sure assigned was Public Works, was Tracy, Dwight, and Tim.
Why is that?
Because I already had them working on the drainage issue and I got them going earlier.
Started that drainage issue 3 years ago.
I wasn't here.
I was curious.
That's why we moved forward quickly on that one and I signed people there. If someone else wants to join, that's fine, but I asked those three and they didn't run fast enough, I guess. I talked to Wes earlier today about the parks, and he agreed to move forward with the parks. The administrative committee, Carl and Georgia had given me input before that they were still interested in sticking with that, and we haven't completely finished the personnel manual, so I'd like them to continue with that. The rest is just open to discussion with the rest of the council. We won't do it now, but you have it for light reading over the next couple weeks, and I appreciate any input you want to share. The other thing is I want to bring up to the few of you that are remaining, that I do want to move forward with the volunteer coordinator person. So I'm just sharing that with the community. I will be doing a write-up for the paper for that, but I really do want to move forward with that, and I also want to, as part of the volunteer coordinator's responsibilities, is the Adopt a Park program, where we have people associated with, or organizations, or businesses, or friends, or different types of groups that are committed to a different part of our public lands, the parks, and the community. So we're going to be. Mary has information about the Adopt a Park program at City Hall if anybody's interested in learning more about it. But it is one of those things that I do want to get implemented for the city.
We tried, no one spoke up to.
We didn't have you on the Parks Committee before, Wes. You're going to make it happen
No, it was last year when we done it.
Oh.
Harley actually brought the deal to us.
Well, we're going to try again, because I think it would be a great thing. We've got a lot of volunteers in this community that I think would be willing to step up and help us out. And I want to coordinate it forward, and I want to move the program forward. That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion carried.
I was supposed to take a group picture for the website.
We are too fried.
Just as well, get it done. Won't have to rush.
I tried.
Carol
That's overrode.